It's your favorite mob wife, Renee Graziano, and this is The Real in Reality. I'm going to read something to you guys because my guest today is a true hero, a real living Superman, if you ask me. Some may view his life story as tragedy, but I see it as triumph and victory. I see God's grace and glory that surrounds him. His name is Kai Bickle. We will go into further who Kai is, but more importantly, his credentials speak to who he is, not who his father was or who his father thought he was. He's the recipient of the 2021 Child USA Voice of the Voiceless and the recipient of the 2022 Champion for Social Justice and Human Rights Award. I say that to say this: out of darkness comes light. And even though I and he and many others may see his father, Nagard, as a devil, I see Kai like Saint Michael, who slayed the demon. Not so he'd receive a penny of the 900 million he gave up along with his father's last name, but so he can set free the many who have been mentally, physically, sexually, and emotionally abused. Like I said, Kai is a hero. And it is such an honor, for me to have him here and bring awareness to the loopholes we have in our justice system so we can stop this type of abuse all around the world. My father said, Kai is standing up for what he knows is right. And my father always said, Renee, stand tall and strong for something that you believe in, or you will fall for everything. With no further ado, Kai, welcome.
Thank you so much. That was very touching.
Sorry, I'm crying.
I'm tearing up a little myself.
When we hung up last night, well, first let me tell my listeners. So I was watching NBC and I was watching a story about this man named Nagard. And Nygard. I'm sorry. Yeah. Nygard. And I, first you see this island, this beautiful island. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, what a beautiful, magical land. But as the story goes on, it became ugly and evil and a place of a living hell for many. And I was on the couch with several of the girls, and I myself am a domestic violence survivor, a rape survivor, a sexual assault survivor, as some of the other girls. And we were just sitting there like in shock and like, was this a really good idea for us to watch this right now? And I'm like, I'm DMing his son right now. I need to send him. And I found you to be fascinating and a hero. You said something to me last night on the phone. Because it was you that had the, excuse my language, balls to take down the monster that was hurting many. And you were being hurt as well, not in the sense of the sexual, but emotionally and mentally, you have to have trauma. You know, I have trauma for you. I'm an empath, so I pick up on everything. So it was very necessary for me to reach out to you because my podcast, being The Real in Reality, this is really our world right now. And you know, so many people say, "Oh, is your show scripted?" And I say, I wish it was. Like, I wish I could tell you that things that have happened in my life are complete lies, but they're not. And I feel that they were given to me to pay it forward to the next person. And having you even just respond makes me feel like I'm paying it forward. And today we get the chance to do it together. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I was honored to respond. I looked you up and I saw that you had a story of overcoming a lot, and it's difficult when you find yourself in positions where there's stigmas and different types of things that you can't control with family members or others that are in your life. And you have to make choices about who you are and what you do with those circumstances and how you handle it. And you're never going to please everybody. You're always, there is no way to please everybody. So you chose to step into the light, so to speak, and have, your life be something where you're able to talk to others, and you're able to create a platform, and you're using it to, even right now. I mean, even when I spoke to you yesterday, the conversation and the theme of what our interaction was healing, adding value to your listeners, trying to create a positive path forward. And that's admirable. And I respect that. And I'm really honored to be able to see if there's any ways to add value to your audience, and perhaps share some insights that I've kind of learned along the way. And, I'm just happy to be here. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And I am open, and just know that I got you back. And from where I come from, that's pretty good. So we did speak about PTSD.
Yeah.
Last night. I suffered horribly from it, where I keep like a can of change by my window. Now, right. I know that there's nobody coming through that window, because I'm intellectually intelligent enough. But something in my life, obviously my lifestyle, has scared the shit out of me, that I always think something is, and it's always something horrible. And I think also a lot of it has to do with my the sexual abuse, from he doesn't even have a name, so we don't even. Well, he does. It's called Rat. But anyway, and I say that because I have to put things in my brain with certain, I told you the ex-boyfriend, I call him because he's a clown, and I have to program myself that way. That's how I actually deal with. Those are my coping skills, which aren't really the best, but it gets me through. And if it's just for 5 minutes, for 24 hours, for day by day for me, sometimes minute by minute. But this platform is for you to speak and to bring awareness. And congratulations. Yesterday you had great news.
Yeah. It's just progress. Getting emotional for some reason here, but I think what it is there has been a lot of positive momentum for certain actions as a result of a tragic situation. And when you're going on the right path, because it seems like doors continue to open. Mm-hmm. So from this situation where there was this reveal to all of us that our father and the family was living this double life and hurting a lot of people, had a very perverse and warped sexual life, and was really a abuser on a massive scale. And so as I went down this path of figuring out what was really going on, there were a couple of areas that became painfully obvious that he was taking advantage of some loopholes within the system, the legal system. And I don't know if it's intentionally that way. I think the legal system is complex, and I don't like to point fingers, but I just basically, it became clear that there's some loopholes here, and we need to close them.
Let's close them.
And so there's been an effort. You mentioned in the introduction, the Voice of the Voiceless award recipient. That was from this group called Child USA, who is a nonprofit group that I was introduced to through this actor, Corey Feldman, who had done a lot of work because he felt he'd been abused as a child actor, and that there was a lot of abuse going on there. So, and Corey had connected me to this group, and And what they focus on is actually changing laws, and they focus on children. Certainly in my story, it's women and children that he was abusing. So I fit that category of someone that they, are focused on kind of working with, because everyone's got to have their focus. And as I told them the story of what had happened, and these loopholes that were there, they became very interested and proactive in helping. And so I've been really blessed to work with there's been like a team, I'd say, of almost 5 people, and they're all, dedicated attorneys. And we continue to meet up, and we have identified the areas that need to be corrected or that we would like to see amended. There's one in particular that's painfully obvious. And so we've gotten our draft done, where, we've redlined the parts that are, currently in the legislation that need to be fixed and adjusted and that kind of thing. And then, yesterday was cool because these major organizations, now we're continuing to talk to these major organizations. I've been pretty proactive behind the scenes, reaching out to groups, and one thing leads to the next and to the next, and these doors keep on opening. And so I had this call, and it was sort of surreal because, I think it's a little too early to start name dropping the groups, but these are major organizations within the USA that have an excellent reputation in doing this type of thing and are very well connected. So, and that's key, because as we present these changes, then we need to gather support, create momentum, get senators and Congress people on board, get influencers like yourself and your audience and all that kind of thing. And anyway, it was a beautiful moment of seeing this progress and gain traction. And I really feel hopeful and confident that we're not asking too much. It's totally within reason. Pretty much everyone that looks at it goes, "Oh my God, that's the way the law is." No, that has to be changed,
Well, anything that involves a child, yes, absolutely. A woman, I'm a woman, obviously, but children, in the voice of the voiceless, children are just these little. I'm a grandmother of 2, and I think, God forbid, like, what would I know what I would do?
Yeah.
That then would cause my whole family to fall apart. So before we all, because there are people that will handle it a specific way, which I admire your bravery, because I probably would have handled it the way that I know, and then would have been like, I did it.
Right.
But that's the sins of the father with that doesn't
I know about that. Yeah. And by the way, I actually think that him, just if he were to be, let's say, quote, taken out or, something like that, I actually think that's not really, I don't think everyone felt good when Jeffrey Epstein had the suicide thing. They felt like, hey, he should have been in jail. He should be sitting in prison for the rest of his life. That's worse than 2 minutes of pain and agony or whatever it is. And so
it's a coward's way
with right. And with my situation, he is someone that has lived extreme luxury for the last 50 years. He doesn't want to die. He doesn't believe in God. He's afraid of death. But he doesn't believe in life after death or any of that stuff. But he's going to fight. But what I think he really, he's someone that sleeps with the TV on and has to constantly be stimulated all the time. So for me, I think a just punishment for finally, having some reveals would be to be alone and in quiet place and no TV, no stimulation, and deal with your past, and be there. So we will see. But until he's actually proven guilty, we don't know.
So
it
he
seems
hasn't
like
even
he is
been,
going to be.
Okay. Yeah, he has to be.
Here's the thing. It's hard to prove sex crimes as guilty, because it's a he said, she said. Look at Bill Cosby's situation. He just got out.
Yes.
He's out. So, and everyone's like, this is absurd. He has, in his civil case, I think he's got over, I'm guessing here, but I think it's over 30 people that are saying he drugged and raped them. And he's out, so, with our situation here, he has over 125 people now in the civil suit that are claiming that he's done some terrible things to them. But going back to this loophole thing, only a small handful even qualified to press charges because of the loophole. And before, I keep alluding to the loophole, so I'll just reveal what it is. It's just it's a jurisdiction loophole. He basically flew people down to his Bahamas compound from America and the USA. And by the way, when we were talking about Child USA and this loophole, the work they're doing with me is not only just for kids. We're actually this legislation part. We've expanded the protections because there were some protections for kids, but it wasn't broad enough, and it didn't include the right words of what needed to be in there. And now we've also expanded it for adults, because what's happened is that here's the loophole. Here's his whole scheme was, and he did this very consciously, was he bought property in the Bahamas. He became a Bahamian resident. He told people sort of behind the scenes that it was for taxes, and it was, because if he was Bahamian resident, he didn't have to pay taxes as a Canadian citizen. So he had this huge, tax loophole that he was using, but, nobody's going to get upset about that. That's the way it is. A lot of people do that. So you're like, okay, smart businessman, fine.
Tax evasion.
Yeah, but it's not because it's legal.
It's not because it's legal.
It's legal tax evasion, but
exactly,
it's smart business, right? So it's we can all.
I can understand that stuff. One. Yes.
Yeah, but that was what he would talk about. And then he would talk about how the Bahamian people are so wonderful and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So Bahamas is a 30-minute flight from Miami. All right. So his whole thing was, I'm going to speak to Canadian women or American women, because he's also a Canadian citizen and American, he had property in California and New York. So I'm going to invite women that I meet in the USA and Canada. I'm going to tell them anything I need to say to get them to come to Bahamas. So he had a fashion company.
All you really have to say is, do you want to go to the Bahamas?
Right. And by the way, the house that he built, and what I saw growing up as a kid from concept to, because I would come back and visit. I didn't live there on the day to day. I would just sort of visit. But it was one of the most spectacular homes in the planet by bar none. I mean, it was one of the largest homes on the planet. It was a spectacular piece of property. And he created this wonderland sort of tree house, mansion, compound. And I was looking at him just thinking, God, you are a genius. Like, this is amazing. Because every time I'd come back, there was some incredible new feature at the house. And so he would basically show the house, and then he would talk about his fashion line, because he was, was a large manufacturer of women's clothing in Canada. And then, hey, you want to be a model? I think you would do so well. You should do my law. So he'd say whatever he needs to say. He'd have the travel department buy them a ticket, get them down there, spend a lovely weekend in his Bahamian place. And here's his trick. You come in, and by the way, he's doing this a lot on his own little private times there. It's not like family weekend that he's doing this, right? He had lots of huge gaps. He's very calculated. He was very private. Even when I was there, to get up to his level, you have to go through like security, almost not a security guard, but there's locks and stuff like so I didn't really go up there.
Wow.
But anyway, he gets you there, and you get in the compound. He's got a big gates. There's talk that he was taking passports for safety, just to make sure that, some random staff member didn't steal it or something like that. Is what he would tell them, but really it was having power over them. And you'll leave when I say you leave, and you have to get my permission to leave, kind of thing.
Ooh, and narcissistic.
Oh yeah. Very, very, very narcissistic, malignant narcissist was what I, kind of figured out. But, and then basically, all of the, I have to use these terms, alleged assaults, alleged incidents, were occurring because it was kind of like, all right, you're going to do what I say, how I want it. We're going to have sex. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And if you don't, I'm just going to take it anyway. Right. So he's basically got him locked in his compound, and they're there. And as his perverted mind, wants, and then it sort of, as we started to see this, amount of cases and read about them, it sort of almost seemed like that was his thing. Like he wanted to have you say no, in a way. Like that was a thing for him.
Yes. That's taking your power. It's demeaning you. It's belittling you. It's right. Control.
Now keep in mind when you're there and somebody's there, because certainly he had this playboy lifestyle. He promoted consensual non-monogamy. He had dinner, he'd make speeches about how women are the superior gender. They should, women ran the world. There'd be no wars. He talks all about how you need to respect women, how like, so he's really, it's like a priest saying
he's got that charm. That convincing charm.
Right. So what you see versus what you get when it's 2 a.m. and he invites you up to his room and you willingly walk up to his room. And then, these stories are happening. So it wasn't as obvious for people to know what he was doing as I think from an outside perspective, you might think. Right. You might say, well, why do you guys you must have known? Well, not really, because
that's definitely not the case. You don't always know what goes on in your household.
And his house, I mean, it was so big, you had to have walkie-talkies. So you don't really know who's coming and going or what happened. And his target, you find out, like, he didn't target everybody. He'd still have people come in, but if you came, for example, he might not target you like that. He might, hit on you. And if you said no, he might say, okay, that's fine. Because he knows that you've got a platform and XYZ, and he doesn't want to go down that road.
Definitely not.
Right. But there's all these stories about him sending out scouts to basically areas that are impoverished in the Bahamas and bringing in people and telling them it's a modeling opportunity and getting him up to his room to model some of his clothes. And then, and then the problem was, here's the loophole is basically, if you're, let's say an American or a Canadian, and you end up in this trap, and you're there and you're someone that he's okay with targeting, because he's going to make a conscious decision about, but he wants to target, and something happens and you get, you're furious and you want justice. Well, there's stories of people leaving the compound and getting to police and having the police bring them back to the compound, because
that's called in your pocket.
So the whole accusation was that he had, police and politicians in his pocket. He might, there's speculation he could have had blackmail over people. Right. There's a lot of stuff about cameras. So if he sets someone up in a bad situation, they do something, he's got it on camera, all those tactics are in play. And so basically the Bahamian police, it's like, it's not happening. You're not going to get, to give you an idea, there's so much happened in the Bahamas, and he still doesn't even have one charge, doesn't even have a sexual harassment charge. in Bahamas. Nothing, zero.
So there's nowhere, not in America, Bahamas, nowhere. Nobody is, I mean, I know the case is ongoing. So nobody in the United States has a charge.
Well, so yes, people in the United States have a charge.
Okay.
Only if the offense happened in the United States. And that's the loophole.
Okay.
Because if it happened in the Bahamas,
it happened in the Bahamas.
And the thing is you come home and you're furious and you say, hey, this guy, he lives in Los Angeles. Right. He, raped me or assaulted me. And this happened. He flew me to the Bahamas and this happened. They say, I'm sorry, but we can't do anything about it. You have to go to the Bahamas and file there. Well, you can't file there. They're not going to hear your case. They're not going to do anything. They're going to call him.
Right. Exactly.
And say, hey, she over here. And you have to physically go there.
Right.
And then he's got all his goons and stuff in there. He's going to go threaten you. Right.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's a whole thing that's unraveled here. And then same thing for Canada. You go home, he's a Canadian citizen.
Right. And
you're like, hey, this Canadian citizen assaulted me and I'm a Canadian citizen and he flew me on a plane, assaulted me here. And then I got back. What can I do? And they say, sorry, you can't do anything. You got no way you cannot press charges. You have to go to the Bahamas to press charges. Well, you can't press charges. So this is the loophole, is that if I can get you to the Bahamas,
I could do
then I can do whatever I want. And I never have to worry about a criminal charge. Now, you might say, here's the other loophole. You might say, all right, well, I'm going to say something about it publicly. I'm going to go home then. If he did this to me, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go to the press and I'm going to call him out and I'm going to go on social media and I'm going to say, this guy is the worst thing since, whatever. Well, guess what? You're going to get a $50 million defamation lawsuit.
Yes, you are.
And you're going to get strung along through court for 10 years. You're going to have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney fees. And if you win your defamation suit and you show that you did not slander him, your reward is nothing.
Yeah.
Your reward is that you didn't get a $50 million defamation penalty. You still have to pay your lawyer fees. You still spent all that time in litigation. And who wants to do that?
And
who can afford to do that?
Afford it, but this is where suicide comes in, drug abuse comes in. This is like, we're obviously talking about the sexual crime, but it gets even greater when you think of the person's mind. I know for me, and I'll speak for myself, my trauma has tortured me. I'm 52, tortured me since I'm in my 20s. Actually, my first boyfriend abused me. His name was Frank. I was 15. And I still have trauma over that. And to think, I've, been in and out of recovery. I've fought, I've done everything I possibly could. Then I started with plastic surgery. Then I started with tattooing. And then I started with anything and everything to try to change the way I would feel because I couldn't escape my reality. Because that's everyone's reality right now with the victims.
I had a thing with cannabis where I constantly self-medicating with cannabis. I decided 7 months ago to give that up and just face whatever it was that was bothering me, but it was a constant feeling like at some point you need to escape. And if we get on the I guess PTSD topic, I was lucky, some things were really amazing in my life. With him as my father, I had access to some incredible people. At some point I leveraged my dream job where I asked him if I could be basically a full-time science scout and find like anti-aging technologies and longevity technologies and just curate this team of incredible experts. And I introduced him to that, which he also took into a totally weird, crazy place. But I was able for a long time to just travel the world, going to these incredible conferences and meeting Nobel Prize winners and stuff. I had this whole thing going on. and I'm still really into that. But along the way, I guess on this PTSD subject, and because I mentioned that background with that, I got exposed to a lot of science and some pretty cool technologies and leads. So I try to keep up with what's going on. And so first of all, and this is also why it was so important to stop him on these abuses, is because of the PTSD trauma. One of the reasons why it's such a horrible crime is that it's an injury that continues over and over and over and over again. So the actual injury, as I understand it, and I'm not a doctor, I just play one on TV.
I play a few things on TV.
But basically, one of the things is that it's actually a measurable injury. They can actually measure it, that there's an injury to your nervous system.
Oh,
so it's it's actually a real injury that's measurable. It's not just something that's in your head or that people think you should just tough it out. It's something, and it won't heal unless you do specific things.
Right.
And so it turns out that there is a nonprofit group that has been pushing forward one, or I guess two, breakthrough technologies as listed by the FDA. By the way, they've acknowledged it as a breakthrough technology. So they're fast tracking it. But these studies take time and whatnot.
They could guinea pig me.
Right. And so the organization is called MAPS, MAPS.org. So all your listeners, could look that up and they would see what it is. But essentially what they found is that really they focused on one, but there's really two that is also being studied. But these are recreational drugs. Okay. Are you talking about microdosing? Not exactly. Basically, there's a drug called MDMA.
Oh, Molly, right?
Yeah. I believe it's called Molly. Ecstasy,
Molly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like I got this little glare on me. I might have to turn this light off. But anyway, I got the shiny unicorn forehead going on.
You are a unicorn.
I like unicorn. But
so MDMA.
Yeah, MDMA, when given in a clinical setting
and the right dosage,
they do it through IV, I think,
and a pure form.
Right. And they do it through IV, I think. They may do it orally too. I don't know. But, and then here's the thing. They put you with a trained trauma therapist.
Okay.
And you go through the trauma with the therapist while on MDMA.
Okay.
And what happens is they refer to it as a neurological dampening. Okay. And what that sort of means, and I may be butchering this a little because I'm not a doctor, but they can measure that there's a healing taking place in that nervous system.
Okay, and so it's similar to what the shaman does with, and I call it ayahuasca because I
did ayahuasca. Yeah.
Did you? I want to do it.
I actually, when I was before 2012, when it was the whole apocalypse of 2012, the Mayan calendar and whatnot, yes. I had a falling out with, Nygaard or whatever, over all this medical stuff. Cause I had kind of led him into it for a year or two. And, him and this doctor I had connected had this falling out, and the doctor I connected it to him was like a Boy Scout, wore like a bow tie, never offended anybody. He's just the nicest guy. And I was like, hey man, why are you always the center of every falling out? I'm asking my dad, right? Like, what is going on? Like, I can't keep introducing you to people. And then that turned into World War III. Right. And so I left and I went, a friend of mine was leading a retreat, like a raw food retreat in Peru. in Cusco up by Machu Picchu and all that.
I have a friend who lived in the Amazon.
Yeah. And he's like, Kai, man, just come. And he actually had his assistant sit with me and book the ticket to make me come. And so I was just kind of with him at the retreat. And along the way, they did San Pedro, they did ayahuasca, they went to all these different sacred sites, and it just completely blew my mind. Peru blew my mind. And I was supposed to be there for 11 days. I stayed 6 months. I ended up out of the tribe. Staying back. Yeah. Well, there was a raw food chef at the event. Her and I decided to stay back in an apartment together, and we rescued a cat. And so it was me, her, and our cat Falcor. And that was one of the best times, one of the happiest times of my life. But basically, being in Peru, especially in Cusco, it's this magical city in the mountains 2 miles up, with old ruins and ancient churches, and then international little cafes, because you have all these international travelers that go there. So you got the German restaurant that's actually Germans, right. And the Swedish restaurant, Swedish. So you go for your Swedish pancakes, and then you go to your German bratwurst, whatever. Oh, so it's pretty cool. And then you can go out to these different places like Machu Picchu, but also the plant medicines there, like ayahuasca and San Pedro, are available. And it wasn't something, the thing with plant medicine is everyone that's around that will caution you and say, okay, you do this with respect. This is this is a sacred process. This isn't just some recreational thing. Right. And you have to be sort of called to it. And yes, you have to really feel like, so I did ayahuasca once, and I did it as sort of this, journey into adulthood, because a lot of cultures, there's a journey to adulthood. You have like a bar mitzvah. That's a 16. Ceremony, right? I never had one. I was in my late 20s. I never had one. I was like, I need to have one. So I'm going to do this as mine, because a lot of them, they do that. And it was this, I actually didn't have this big, crazy, profound experience. Really? I did.
I heard that's really bad.
Well, not necessarily, because they would say that there's purging, isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. But if you're afraid of throwing up, or throwing up is a big problem for you, then maybe plant medicines aren't necessarily the best thing, because some
if there's
of them
something in me and I could throw it up, then listen, I'll be the first one to stick my fingers down my throat.
Some people visualize like, serpents coming out of their mouth and throwing it up, or something. They think that they just cleanse themselves of something, some evil entity, but a lot of the connection with the ayahuasca was really more about, it was sort of like a vision quest almost, is how they look at it, in terms of seeing. It's really there's actually really fascinating. If your listeners ever wanted to get into this, there's a guy named Graham Hancock who has studied this. He's like a doctor looking type of guy, scientist, and he's done ayahuasca a lot. And it's fascinating. People in different parts of the world doing ayahuasca see some of the same characters come and speak to them.
Wow.
So it's a very interesting situation. And I think we have a lot to learn about nature, and we don't want to demonize things, especially, but of course there are risks with anything. And so it's very much about doing your research, being very careful. There are stories. Some people, as with anything, have had bad reactions to it. So it's not just like, hey, go out and go do it. But I'm just saying, I've always been interested, I always like this term, interested and interesting. I like people who are interested and interesting. They're interested in what they don't know, and they're interesting because they've been exploring all that stuff.
Well, I've done the ketamine treatments.
Well, that's one of them that maps. That was the other one. I said MDMA, but the other one that maps is also, studying is the ketamine. The question I would have for you is, were you doing the ketamine treatment along with a trauma therapist to take you through that journey. And that would be the key part.
Okay. So I was in treatment when I was doing it, but I was alone in the room when it was, you know, an IV, and I would sit there alone in the dark by myself. So no, there was nobody. And it was kind of weird, but cool.
Right.
I was, and I'm very honest, obviously. I always joke and say the only thing fake is my nose. You know, it was cocaine and champagne. So I wasn't into all the type of drugs that made you like hallucinate, or I didn't like that feeling because
you like stimulants.
Yeah, just stop my brain from thinking, please.
Right. Yeah.
However, I found with the ketamine treatment, I was so calm.
Yeah.
And my physical, my ex-husband shattered my sacrum, and it helps heal the body. And I did a lot of treatments. I did about, I would say about 15 treatments. And I was having
ketamine.
Yeah, I was having a great experience until one day Renee decided, fuck this, because I saw the plastic surgeon who actually, true story, who flatlined me on the table, and I relapsed in a second. And like literally all of that work, those 6 months I just put into
the triggering event.
Along with that, I was also doing those little, it's not, it's not electric shock therapy I've tried that too, because they told me that it would get rid of my depression.
Yeah, you want to try anything.
However, I was never I'd never had major depressive disorder. So they really fucked my brain.
Yeah.
I have situational depression, and it's a broken heart or where's the money? Those are my situations. Or daddy can't fix something. So it's not even the depression that they clinically diagnosed me with. It's crazy. So they have this new technique where they use little electrodes. They put like this cap on, and there's like 3 of them, and it goes into the brain so lightly. The man is from California. I wish I could remember his name, but I guess the shock therapy fucked that part of my brain up. And you watch these videos, and it just was so interesting, and it helped. It really got me my first year of recovery. That I couldn't get from just the talk therapy, because every time you want to talk about something, it came from your childhood. No, the fuck it didn't. My father didn't do nothing wrong to me. I understand. Oh, you were abandoned. My father never abandoned me. He went to jail because that's what you had to do in that life. Period. I see it that way. I'm not changing my view on that. I adore my father. And in my mind, that was our way to survive. That's called survive. That's survival. Yeah. And that's the truth in my world. You know what I mean? Yeah. Shut up so you don't get killed. And then it comes down to generations and generations. Again, sins of the father. It's a forever thing. And it's I'm glad that there is medicine that they are using, as long as it's given in the right dosage.
Yeah. And that's the whole idea of working with a clinical setting, to make sure that there's the right dosage and the purity of it. And also that if there is some issue, they can deal with it. So if for some reason you had some problems, because the human body is very complicated. So, and it's very personalized, so there's not really a blanket statement, one size fits all for everybody. It's very much we're our own, we have to be the CEO of our own body. Right. And we live with the consequences or the benefits. So when people try to force things, I always am a little bit, so you got to be careful and decide cautiously if it's something you want to try, and what dose, and do your research and work with your medical team and all of that good stuff. But I just want to let you know that for even the ketamine, if you were to try that again with a trauma therapist specialist, and you were to go through and relive the trauma while on the ketamine, you may start to get some different results. And another part of this is the MDMA. because that's the one that MAPS has really been focused on. And they are seeing very big success rates. I think they're getting over, I'm going to butcher the stats, but I think it was over 70% cure rates, which is crazy.
God. Yeah. I never did that drug.
Right. And so, but
I'm like,
again,
I'll try it.
Yeah. But again, it's not like, hey, let's all go out and get Molly and talk about our problems. It's really about,
getting to the root.
Yeah. And it's also about going through this professional setting. And so I would encourage people, again, to go through that maps.org. Okay. And they do have ways that you can apply to be one of the early test subjects, but this is coming, and it may turn into a real viable, available treatment for many people. And this has also been one of the subjects behind the scenes of the healing process for the trauma in my family is not only let's close these loopholes, but we have to provide hope for the survivors.
Yes.
Because I'm the guy, it's like sins of the father. He did whatever he did. And then I'm talking to the person he did it to, and they're crying, telling me, and like, I want to help them. And it's like, I'm getting all of his, this trail of pain, that he's created.
Yeah.
And one of the big things I think is just, how do we heal it? How do we move on and go forward? We were talking yesterday about, I asked you if you knew about Stoic philosophy. And I actually have a book next to me here. I'll show you. This is a good one. This is called The Daily Stoic.
Okay.
Now, what Stoic philosophy is, there's another one here. Have you ever heard of this guy, Marcus Aurelius?
Yes.
All right. So Marcus Aurelius, he overcame a lot of adversity as a Roman emperor. He created this, he had something he called meditations, where he was like a philosopher too. And he would think about things and write them down. And then there's this other guy, Seneca. Have you heard of Seneca?
No.
Okay. Well, Seneca was another figure from back then who had a very interesting life and was also a thinker and a ponderer. And so they have these different figures in there. And I thought that, there were a couple of quotes in Stoic philosophy I really resonated with, especially as it comes to dealing with trauma and dealing with, pain and woe is to me with these bad circumstances and everything.
Pity buddies.
So for me, I was in a spot where, I just had, my whole life I was sort of the prince of the kingdom and was working really always for free because I knew that all these assets were in my name. And I was just like, hey, like at some point I will, kind of take over. And then I basically have a choice of the golden handcuffs is what he would call it. Basically, like your name is on this, but I have the power to remove it. Ooh. And so you have to do what I say. And so when there came a time as I started to get the reveal of, wait a minute, who is this guy? What the hell is he really up to? And then there was those moments of sort of deciding, do I, make the play for the golden handcuffs, or do I take this guy down? And it wasn't a middle ground. It was really one or the other. And obviously I made the choice to take him down, but when we have the,
choice to set people free.
Yeah. Set people free. I mean, it's just at the end of the day, it's do the right thing. And the hard part for me was the thought of him continuing this behavior. Like he'd already done so much and he needed to answer for that. Right. But at the same time, when I thought about him actually fleeing the country before charges,
right,
I was just thinking to myself, oh my God, then what's he going to do the next 10 years of his life or the next 20 years of his life? It's going to probably even be worse because people get sicker. They don't get better, when they're in that mindset. So, but anyway, as all these circumstances are unfolding and all this stuff's happening around me and all this chaos, the Stoic philosophy became really a go-to for me. And one of the pillars of Stoic philosophies is love of fate.
Love of fate. F-A-T-E.
So basically, it's fate. It's my fate that I had a father that is this monster.
I'm going to write that down right now.
Right? I can't control that.
Nope.
So I might as well embrace it.
Okay.
You know, I might as well embrace it. And by embracing it,
doesn't mean
which is easier said than done.
Right. Doesn't mean you accept that situation, but you have to, it's basically the saying, which I hate more than anything. It is what it is. And I fucking hate that saying, but it's the truth.
You can't change it.
You can't.
You have it's out of your control
over just yourself.
It's all you can control is how you respond.
Yeah. Well, I told you how good I am at that one.
Well, yeah, but every day, every moment, we get another chance at how we respond.
Yeah. I started doing mine with tattoos, like this is my nonprofit, Faith, Hope, and Freedom. If you have faith, there's hope and freedom that binds you. The past was only practice. I started writing on my body, but then I have this big shh on my finger.
Right.
So,
well, just be careful not to fall into that trap of I don't do this or I do that, or, because you get to actually decide every day, every moment. Right. So your past doesn't have to mean it's your future. It's just, I used to do that, but now I do this. And, one of the other quotes I loved that really drew me in was, it was something to the effect of death smiles upon any, and they say man in this case, but it would be person, but it says death smiles upon every man. All a man can do is smile back. And I was just thinking to myself, what that is it's even in the face of death or carnage, you have an opportunity to respond, and you could meet it with fear and crazy and going nuts, or with a smile and embrace it
and accept it.
And so ultimately we always have a choice. So love of fate is, hey, of course, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. And that has helped me to respond to no matter what the circumstances, just try to, and then the other thing is always just try to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, what is the right thing? And most people know when they look at it.
We know.
Here are my options.
Right.
What's the right thing?
Like what we're doing is the right thing. We're giving out healthy information to help the next person stay alive and get that healing. So where tell my listeners where they can find you, what we can do for you, what names you want on that petition. I'll go see who I got to see. I have friends in places, high and low. Trust and believe me.
I appreciate that. So on my Instagram, it's just, it's Kai Bickle, Bickle like pickle with a B. So basically it's my mom's last name. And, I changed my name legally. I dropped the Nygaard part. I was always Kai Bickle Nygaard. And I cut out the, Nygaard. I added Bickle, and then I put Zen as my middle name. So I also have things as Kai Zen Bickle, but, basically, I just want to honor her with that. And so I have an Instagram, Kai Bickle, and I'm on Twitter as Kai Zen Bickle. But either way, that's how you can kind of find me on social media right now. And then what's going to happen on these on these topics is when we're ready to come out and talk about that, we're going to have an online petition.
Okay.
That people are going to be able to sign. I'm looking at creating basically a way for influencers when they endorse it. I want to make like an NFT collection, which is another subject. But basically the idea is that we're going to create momentum of people saying, yes, we demand to close this loophole. So the way that we're writing it is that if you go to foreign soil, you go to another country,
right,
and something happens to you, especially on the sex crimes part, because you kind of have to be specific. But so anything related to a sex crime happens to you, you can go to a hospital there and do a rape kit which is also important. If anything ever happens to anybody, to know that they shouldn't go shower, even though that's your first instinct. You should go to the hospital and do a rape kit, because that's actually critical for the whole evidence thing with this topic. But you also want to collect as much evidence as you can, whether it's video or tell somebody or just whatever it is that you can do. You know, make an online thing. Hey, I just got assaulted. This guy, blah, blah, blah. Like, you keep that, because that's important. Tell somebody, you know, so that there's you know, get your rape kit done. But so then the idea is that let's say you're in the Bahamas, okay, and something happens to you. You can go to the Bahamian hospital. You could do the rape kit or do whatever you need to do at the hospital. And then you would be able to then take that back home with you and give it to the police. And then they have the ability to go ahead and say, all right, there's enough evidence here that we can press a charge. And then if that person comes back to America, there's something waiting for them. If it's bad enough, they could even potentially put out an arrest warrant in their country, depending on how the laws for extradition is and everything. The way in this Nygaard case, he got arrested in Canada by the USA, who had created you know, basically 9 charges out of this 125 people, but maybe 4 of them were able to, because it actually happened in the USA. Right. And that's how crazy it is that the other one we're working on is that if you accuse somebody of a sex crime and they sue you for defamation, then where it was before, if you're responsible to defend yourself, and if you prove them wrong that it wasn't defamation, nothing happens. Well, the way we're writing it is that if you prove them wrong, they have to pay for your lawyer bills and damages. Especially if it's related to a sex crime. So if you say, and those damages last forever, so it's going to be a very expensive bill. Well, what that will do is level the playing field so that you can actually have lawyers represent you on consignment, so that you don't have to pay for the lawyers up front. The lawyers will say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this case because I believe that this is not defamation. I believe that you were assaulted. I believe that they are just a powerful bully that's trying to silence you. And I'm going to take on this case, and I'm going to prove to the court that that's the case. And then we're going to win. I'm going to have my bills paid and for my effort. And I'm going to get you some money for having to go through all this trauma for even dealing with this defamation case. And what that would have done is that will level the playing field. Yeah. That will make, so first, it's going to be hard to do that federally, is what I'm told, but we're going to try, but we're going to start by targeting California. Okay. So if we can get it done in California, that would be a big deal. And so that's what we're working on. The lady that just left before, she's actually up for mayor. So I got you in Cali over here. I got some friends. Anything that I can do, you know, I will. And I will put out all the information on my social media so everybody knows. It's Renee Graziano. And this is The Real in Reality with Renee Graziano at Lux Media. And you will get a copy of everything, because I believe what we are doing is the right thing. And I appreciate your time. And you are forever in my heart and my prayers. And I'm going to do the ketamine treatment again with my EMDR therapist, because I like her. But I found one I like. So now I'm going to combine them. Maybe I could get some that. Well, so the idea on the last point there is that when you relive the trauma and you have a substance that helps you as well, there's a forgiveness and an acceptance there. Right. And when you're able to forgive the trauma and accept that it happened, that's where the healing occurs. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wish you nothing but the best, and we will be in touch. Thank you so much. Definitely. Thank you so much for your time and all that you're doing and all of your kindness towards me. And whenever you need me, you got me. I'm so happy to have another ally to see if we can do some things for the greater good and turn the situation of rotten lemons into fermented lemonade.
Let's do it.
All right.
God bless.
Thank you.
Bye.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NACET. NACET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.